Alright, so you just got to the end of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. You've survived Helheim, you've beaten bosses like 𝗩𝗏𝗏 and 𝗧𝗛𝗓, and you even faced up against Hela. But now that you're at the end, you might have a lot of questions. Number one might be, what the f? Did we win? What happened? Did we save Dillion's soul? Did we actually beat Hela? Was anything in the game real? Well, I have answers to those questions as well as others in today's video. I'm 𝗩𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗢, and today we are going to discuss the ending of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, as well as just talk about what the ending of the game means. If you haven't already played through this game and gotten to the ending, be warned, there are plenty of spoilers sprinkled throughout this video, so if you haven't already beaten the game, maybe go check out one of my other videos on how to beat one of the bosses. Then that might help you beat the game. If you've unlocked the secret extra cutscene for the end of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and are interested in learning more about that explained, be sure to stick around to the end of this video. Okay, so just a quick recap of the story of the game before we get to the ending and then an explanation of it. So the game focuses on Senua, a picked warrior who has to make her way through Helheim in order to rescue the soul of her dead lover Dillion from the goddess Hela. She suffers from psychosis and believes it to be a curse. She hears voices in her head, she sees visions of horrible things, and she also had her father, while she was growing up, constantly telling her that she was cursed and that she needed to be kept away from everyone. On her journey throughout Helheim, she faces enemies such as the Northmen, faces bosses 𝗩𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, 𝗧𝗛𝗓, and Fenrir, and after she finally makes her way to the last portal gate before facing Hela, she recalls a memory that was buried deep within her. That memory ended up being that of the death of her mother. Now, throughout the game, we were told that Senua's mother had killed herself in order to protect others from her darkness. Now, her darkness ended up actually being psychosis, but Senua's father ended up leading their village to burn her alive as if she was a witch. This memory also ends up bringing back others, such as how her father would abuse her mother, how he would lock Senua up and just keep her terrified, and how he convinced her that she was cursed and that all the bad things that were happening in the village were because of her and her darkness. He blamed the darkness on the gods and told her that he was just protecting her, when in fact, he wasn't. She kind of ends up going through all the stages of grief at once as all these memories are coming back to her. But she's determined and she wants to save Dillion's soul, and so she decides that she's still gonna face Hela. After Senua goes through the portal and starts making her way towards Hela to fight her, she ends up facing all of her demons along the way. We see the Northmen pop up again, we see past bosses like 𝗩𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗧𝗛𝗓 and Fenrir all pop up again as well. Then, when you actually get to Hela, you can't actually attack her. She's kind of just standing there looming over Senua, and that ends up making Senua angrier. Enemies continue to swarm in on Senua no matter how many she takes down, and the voices in her head are screaming at her to just give up and to stop. Now, throughout the game, the voices lie to you most of the time. But at the end of the game, as you fight more and more enemies, you'll notice that the voices start to get softer, and they'll tell Senua to let go. Senua doesn't want to let go, but eventually she has to, and she does. After Senua lets go and falls to the blades of the enemies that are surrounding her, she ends up in a dark room with Hela just standing over her. She's pleading and begging for Hela to return Dillion's soul, but Hela is silent, and she doesn't say a word. Eventually, Senua decides to accept her fate, and Hela stabs her through the chest with her sword. Senua is killed, after vowing to not let her father have any further control over her life. We then see Hela next, who's holding Dillion's skull and staring into the empty eye sockets. She's no longer in Helheim, and she walks to the edge of the platform that she's standing on, and she lets the skull go down into the river below. The camera pans away from Hela for a second, but when it pans back, we see Senua standing where Hela was. She looks beaten, but she isn't down. And of course, this is the part that raises a ton of questions. Is Senua alive? Was Hela real? Was anything real? Well, none of it was real. It was all in Senua's head. Okay, so stay with me here. The reason that we see this is because that Senua's psychosis has essentially created her own version of hell in her mind. So even though the loss of Dillion and her father's abuse are what drove her to this state in the game, it was her who ultimately created her hell for herself. Her grief, coupled with the fact that she blamed herself for everything that happened, ended up causing her to kind of turn inward and lock herself down. The voices that she ends up hearing are the maddening part of her psychosis, and they pull her thoughts back and forth, which leave her confused and make matters even worse. However, it was thanks to Dillion's lessons from when he was alive, as well as the stories that we hear repeated throughout the game, Senua slowly comes to realize that she has to triumph over herself and that she is the only one that can escape from the darkness of her mind. After her fight with Hela and after discarding the skull, Senua ends up finding acceptance. She accepts that Dillion is gone, as well as the fact that her father ended up being a huge source for her torment and her pain throughout her life, but that she has to be strong and that she can move on. She had relied heavily on Dillion when he was alive, but she's now found her own inner strength and she's able to conquer anything. Now, you probably noticed that the voices ended up disappearing after the fight with Hela. Well, at the very end of the game, they do come back. The thing is, Senua has found new strength and she's able to move forward. Senua then asks us, the player, to continue to follow her as she has another story to tell. Which, of course, with the announcement of Hellblade 2, that's gonna be sometime, someday. Before we get into the explanation of the extra cutscene at the end of the game, I do want to mention that I do stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/little1ur. Link will be down in the description below. I do stream mostly horror games, and right now we're playing through 𝗧𝗛𝗏, which is terrifying, but it's a fun time. We also have positive conversations, and I discuss my journey with my mental health. So be sure to check me out when I'm live. Okay, so in this extra cutscene, we see Senua speaking with 𝗓𝗏 one last time before going to face Hela. Now, 𝗓𝗏 has been providing us stories all throughout the game that are based on Norse mythology that help to kind of frame and show the world that we see through Senua's mind. We see him as a great guy. We see him as a friend. Unfortunately, this next part might change your mind. If you haven't already unlocked this cutscene for yourself, you should definitely check out my video over here, which is my guide to finding all 44 Lar stones throughout the game so that you can unlock this cutscene, and you also get an achievement. So why not watch it? 𝗓𝗏 starts off by telling us that he isn't the man that we think he is, but in fact that he's a coward who couldn't even protect his own people. In fact, he was the one who led the invaders to the treasures in the villages so that they could pillage and do as they pleased. He did try to bargain peace with them, but unfortunately that was met with violence and enslavement. In order to try to save himself, he ended up betraying those closest to him. However, he still ended up suffering a horrible fate. In addition to this story, 𝗓𝗏 did also have a lesson to teach Senua. Thing is, he saw another man do the same exact things that he did, but who didn't suffer the same consequences. This man had willingly sold his own people to save himself and his village. And he was described as a man wearing all black who came from Senua's village. This is when 𝗓𝗏 lets Senua know that it's not the gods that cause us suffering, but those that are closest to us. This opens Senua's eyes as she proceeds to the end to fight Hela. Although I haven't been able to confirm this anywhere, it does seem like from the hints that were given that this man that 𝗓𝗏 is describing is more than likely Senua's father. Whew. Has your mind exploded yet? That was a lot of explaining. Alright, I think that pretty much wraps up the explanation of the ending of Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, as well as an explanation and look at that extra cutscene that you get. Is there anything that you think I missed in the explanation of the ending? What did you think of the ending of the game? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like on the video. It definitely helps out the channel a lot, and subscribe for more videos like this. Hope that you're all treating yourselves well, and we will see you next time. Bye!